Hey, welcome everybody. This is the first meeting of the City of Sandpoint Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Committee. There are several years of being dormant, so I'm now calling this meeting to order. We don't have a script for these meetings like you might hear at a city council meeting, but whether you knew this or not, the mayor's not just sounding that eloquent.
Melissa don't have a script.
Prepares a script. We will have meetings. Okay, for this meeting, we don't have a script.
But
great.
Going forward,
then I'll sound way more eloquent at our next meeting.
The chair will actually preside over the meeting in the
That's
future,
true. Okay.
and that person will have a script.
Thanks. Melissa's here to keep us all in line. We'd also, we'll go around and do introductions first, just to, get a name to everybody's face. And why don't we start on the left? Melissa, do you mind starting?
Not at all. I'm Melissa, city clerk. And the city clerk's office facilitates committees and commissions, our advisory boards, just in general, tracking board term expirations and just ensuring that you have clerks and facilitating in any way we can to be helpful.
Heather Faircloth. I'm administrative assistant to central services. Day 5, day 6 now. So I will eventually be helping clerk these meetings. In the meantime, I'm shadowing so that I can learn to do it right. So nice to meet you.
I'm Zach Jones. I'm a deputy city attorney. The goal is to keep everybody within the legal parameters of what we're doing here.
My name's Erin Billings and I work for the Lake Plundre School District doing the Safe Routes to School. I'm Julie Perchinsky and I've lived here for quite a few years and have a very big interest in bike and pedestrian routes in town.
You guys, I thought we already did the introduction. That's why I did mine ahead of the game. Sorry, I jumped the gun on that.
Lewis, local Sandpoint resident and cyclist and pedestrian and business owner in the community.
Hey, Deb, just for the recording.
Oh, okay. For the recording, Deb Rolls, city council president, I guess. Yeah.
And city council liaison.
And city council liaison to the bike club. And I guess the only thing else I would point out is I ended up on the planning commission and then eventually on city council because I just wanted one piece of sidewalk for my kids to walk to school. That's where it all started.
And after 16 years, she's still fighting to get that.
No, it took 6 or so. It did take over 6 years, but that piece of sidewalk eventually did go in. Got lucky.
Molly O'Reilly. I've worked for Walkability in Sandpoint since 2001, also bike things. And I've also been active at the national and state level, promoting the ability to walk.
Reed Weber, architect here at Sandpoint, but I live in Bonner County. So I actually grew up in Sandpoint too, and my memories of bicycling around this town at a young age. The joy and freedom that
I'm Taylor. I'm a newer resident of Sandpoint. I've been here for about 2 years. Currently work at Schweitzer, have some experience with county government, mainly in and avid biker walker. I'm Jennifer, Sandpoint, 12, 13 years now. So I love this being able to walk in
Kate, and same as Jennifer, I really like being able to.
And I'm Jason Welker. I'm the Community Planning and Development Director since April. Prior to that, I was on City Council for 2.5 years, Planning and Zoning Commission, and my previous work was as Executive Director of Convoy Peddlers, hence my strong interest in promoting bicycle, pedestrian connectivity, safe routes to school. I've worked with Aaron quite a lot on safe routes to school projects. So when we reformed this commission, I assigned myself a staff liaison for this. This is one of my areas of passion as well. So just for the structure, we've done introductions. Every committee and commission has a council representative. Oh, I'm sorry, Radley, bring it on.
Yeah, it's all good. Thank you. Radley Peterson. I've lived in Sandpoint for 9 years now, I think. Avid cyclist and walker around town, and local business owner.
Bradley as well. In fact, I know most of you pretty well, worked in some capacity together. The structure, we've got, I think, 5 new committees and commissions. In addition to this one, next week, the reformed Parks and Recreation Commission begins. That's a commission because there's a Parks and Recreation Master Plan. The week after that, the Sustainability Committee will meet, and we are still receiving applications for ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, and the I just said sustainability, the Urban Forestry Commission. Those require a bit more of a specialty in terms of participants. We're looking for people with particular experience and skills to fill those out. We do need a minimum of 5 to form a committee, so we're only short by 1 or 2 on those. So we're hoping to have those meet later in the fall. But the mayor's goal, my goal coming in earlier this year was to have at least by end of summer, have these boards begin to convene for the first time. So you saw the agenda. This will be posted before each meeting, usually the deadline, 48 hours before.
Yeah, technically, but generally we'll post the Friday prior.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless it's a Thursday meeting like this one, and maybe it'll be early in the week that week.
Yeah. So you can see the agenda online at least 48 hours beforehand. The content of that agenda will be determined by you all moving forward. And you can see the content of today's agenda, which Melissa prepared for us. This is going to be the same for every new board that meets in the next couple of months. So we can now get on to new business since there's no old business. And that includes orientation and training. Zach is here, our deputy city attorney, and he's going to lead us in some basic introduction to what it is entailed with being part of a official city board like this. So Zach, can I hand it off to you?
Sure.
Okay.
So I didn't prepare a presentation or anything. I apologize, but what I wanted to discuss with you basically is open meetings laws as well as public record acts. And those are touched on in your handbook. This handbook's really well written. Kudos to Melissa again. But read it carefully because it does provide some advice that I would suggest to you take seriously. Particularly the getting a separate email address for all of your business. So the reason for that is anything you communicate that's part of this business is subject to a public records request. It's also subject to a subpoena in a lawsuit later on down the road, should that occur. Hopefully it doesn't. And so it's really important to not have someone be digging through your private emails and private text messages to glean out of there what could or could not be this public information. So just have all of your business be from a separate email. That way, if you do receive a request, public records request or subpoena, you can just say, here it is. And you don't have to worry about intermixing your private comments with those. So to be clear, any correspondence that you have with any other member of this body or any member of really that has to do any correspondence that has to do with official business of the city is a public record. There are exceptions to that, but they're few and far between. The only exception that would likely, it's a good rule of thumb that you have are correspondences or frontage over your attorney-client privilege. Those are protected communications that are likely not need to be produced, but for very limited and unusual circumstances. So, and then as far as open meetings laws, it's very important that you don't communicate with the quorum of the board. And I see that this board is pretty big, so a quorum would be, it's what, 5? Thank you. I was going to try and do the math very quickly. It's half plus 1 of the board. It's however many can convene and act. So if you communicate with more than 5 people, it's a quorum, and that makes it subject to the open meetings laws, which requires a 48-hour notice, posting of an agenda, et cetera, et cetera. And it could void any action that is done, and there could be a domino effect with this. So if you make a recommendation to council and council acts on that, I'm not saying this would happen, I'm just saying it could happen. So it's just very important to follow the laws. And so if you receive an email from staff or myself that is sent to the entire board, please don't hit the reply all button, because then you're initiating a public meeting and pause. And frankly, we will probably have to cure that by dealing with it at the next public meeting. And so when Melissa emails you, she'll probably blind copy everybody, so you can't make that mistake. But sometimes when other staff members, including myself, email you, we aren't as sophisticated or savvy as Melissa.
I think I already screwed up.
We'll just email everybody. And we just ask that you refrain from replying. Does anybody have any questions?
Seems to me that some of the things we might wind up doing would be done with a subcommittee, which would not be a quorum. We'd be really careful of that. What are the requirements for that? And that would report to the full committee, and it would be the full committee that would take action.
Great question. So a subcommittee wouldn't be subject to the open meetings laws, but those are still public records. So that's really the gist of the answer. So just be careful as far as all your written communications and frankly oral communications, but you're not subject to that. Anything else?
Standard protocol with those emails, just like I at all.
Here's kind of what my rule of thumb, don't write anything that you wouldn't be comfortable with being published in paper. That's kind of standard.
It's a really good piece.
Yeah, and one thing I've learned over the years is if there's something sensitive you need to talk about with a staff person, another committee member, call them, talk on the phone.
Yep.
Yes,
And this all sounds really scary, maybe.
it's not scary,
People-
guys.
It's not really,
Sometimes it's scary.
I mean, with the like. sometimes it's-
Probably
But
not
at
on the bike.
At a council level, there's a lot more issues like land use issues and other things that can really get into litigation, but with the bike committee, I mean, I don't think we're really gonna be exposed to that level of problem. But again, if you're not sure, just call somebody and talk to them.
And what my ethics professor told me in law school was step away from the cliff. So if you're kind of wondering, whether you're crossing the line or not, don't even go there.
Okay, any other questions for Zach? Will you be at every meeting, Zach, or is that?
That depends on you. I can do my best to be available. I certainly won't be able to make every meeting.
Yeah.
But make as many as possible.
Okay, great. Okay, Melissa,
Well, I thought we can just kind of jump around here and
Sure.
belabor this handbook because I sent it out to everybody and you already read it or can read it. But just flipping through it really quickly, there's just a section here on meetings, just an explanation that we need a quorum for the meeting. So when you're hearing from your clerk, make sure you're replying. As long as we have the correct email address. Sorry, Taylor. She was kind enough to hop into the meeting. She wasn't getting her messages. Got that corrected. But just make sure you reply right back, because we're trying to assemble if there's a change in the meeting date or something like that. So just be cognizant of that and reply back to your clerk as soon as possible. Meetings are always held here at City Hall. For the most part, they're going to be right here at this table. If there's a conflict with another meeting or event, there's another larger conference room upstairs where we may meet occasionally. But basically, it'll generally be here. The agenda for the meeting, as Jason mentioned earlier, is posted by your board clerk. It's always posted online. It'll be out there on our regular meetings page. And then we'll also email you to let you know when it's posted. So you'll have that heads up.
Melissa, so what is the process for getting an item on an agenda? If a committee member of the public says, hey, could the Ped Bike Committee
Yeah.
discuss this at a future meeting? If somebody wants to come present something to the Ped Bike Committee, how do we get that information onto an agenda?
So the staff liaison will coordinate with the board chair to set the agenda. So once your board chair is elected, they'll coordinate with you.
Okay.
And so committee members could email Jason and the chair, for instance, or give them a call and say, there's something I'm interested in bringing to the board. A lot of times the agenda is going to be set by direction from council or direction from projects going on. That's what's going to be end up coming to the agenda for the most part. But if there is something as a committee member you feel should be addressed by the committee and possibly by council ultimately, then just contact, Jason, and your chair and make a suggestion.
And I have access and ability to, this is a statement, not a question, for the committee, to actually populate our agendas in our internal system that then Melissa organizes into what we see before us at a meeting. So if there are items, you can communicate with me. I can, put that into a format that I think is going to make sense for the agenda, whether it's an action item, whether it's a discussion item, whether it's a presentation. And then that'll get put in, at least a week out from the meeting. And then by the end of the week before the meeting, Melissa will have organized that all into the agenda for it to go public.
And Heather eventually.
Yep.
So,
Okay, so unlike Melissa, just another question. This is actually a question I don't know the answer to. For a city council meeting, if a member of the public wishes to put something on the agenda, that requires like at least one city council member plus a director at the city to sign off on that. Are there any like levels of approval needed to add something to a pedestrian, a citizen committee agenda?
it's not really set up that way for the individual boards. I think it will be rare that a member of the public will probably bring items forward, but it could happen. And if they do, they should just reach out to the chair and to you.
Okay.
Just so that you can,
So basically the chair and staff liaison is what it takes to get an item on the agenda.
well, at least to talk about an item that might be on the agenda. For something like that, and it's possible that you and the chair may come to the next meeting and say, we had this request. Maybe it'll be a discussion item on the agenda. And then, is this something that the committee wants to take up? And then it'll be a discussion for the committee to decide or determine if it's appropriate.
Okay.
So during meetings, there was just a section here on rules and order of voting. So one thing, I don't know if I mentioned in here, but it's in city code, is that the city has, relied on Robert's Rules of Order for basic rules of order. I can tell you that in that big thick book that I have up there at my station, we rarely refer to it. Most motions are pretty simple. Once in a while, we'll have a motion to amend or something like that, or we'll lay a motion on the table to take up later in the meeting or to postpone to another meeting, items that come up. But for the most part, we don't have to refer to it. So in case you're wondering or somebody asks about the rules of order, we do refer to Robert's Rules of Order. And we will if we need to, but it doesn't come up very often. So just in this rules and order of voting section, you'll just see just a reminder that everybody's passionate about the topics. And so we just have to be cognizant that everybody gets an opportunity to speak. This is a big board. So there'll be, just making sure that once you've had your opportunity to speak, that someone. We do try to keep these board meetings to an hour and a half if possible, no longer, just so that we can get wrapped up and succinct. So for action items that are on the agenda, there's a motion, a second, and a vote. So the chair will call for that when the time comes in the discussion. It's wrapping up. They'll call for a motion to take a vote. The chair votes as well. It's not like the mayor where he breaks ties. The chair is a voting member of the committee. And the mayor touched on this a little bit during his introduction, just the fact that the board can act only as a body, not as individuals. So if you're out in the public or even on Facebook or something like that, you're not speaking for the committee. You can provide information, perhaps, factual information about something that was in a meeting or something that might be coming up on an agenda. But as far as speaking on behalf of the committee, that's something that generally the chair does. The council liaison will do during council meetings, for instance, giving reports, and your staff liaison through the mayor. The mayor's office is the public information office for the city of Sandpoint. So any media calls or anything like that, all of that goes through the mayor's office. You can reach out to the city clerk's office and we can contact him if something like that comes up. Meeting minutes are kept by the board clerk, and those are posted just as soon as possible after the meeting concludes. Usually you'll see the video come up first. It's just easier to get that up. It comes up on the city's YouTube channel, and then the minutes are posted.
I did have a question.
Yes.
So will those minutes, since this is, well, we don't know what day it is, but making assumption we stay with the same day, would those minutes be complete by
By the following Wednesday
Yeah.
for council. I see what you're
See,
asking.
I'm asking because if I'm that liaison,
Great
then
question.
I would like to have that solid copy so that I can make little notes and details and then be able to present in a more concise and accurate. So,
That would be my goal. That would be the goal of the clerks, the board clerks, is to have that happen. And thank you for that question, because that's a great point. And we'll make sure that we set that deadline for ourselves. Shouldn't usually be an issue. Some holiday weekend or something like that, but yeah.
there are always those little things, aren't there?
But if not, if nothing else, we'll make sure you have the proper notes. Thank you. Communication between the board and the mayor and city council. As mentioned, all recommendations and action items will be reflected in the minutes. And those will be communicated through the council liaison, staff liaison to the council. And as the mayor mentioned, board recommendations are advisory in nature. City council appreciates and wants these boards to take place and to for recommendations to come out of these boards. So they're anxious to get those recommendations, but the mayor mentions there's occasionally there'll be times where they will take them. Talked about media inquiries, budgeting and purchasing, just real quick. If the need arises to purchase something for purposes of the committee and committee business, that all needs to go through Jason. There's a particular budget the city adopts, and so we need to ensure that that's coming out of we have funds for that. That making sure that you're not ending up purchasing something that you're then going to not get reimbursed for. The city a few months ago adopted a code of ethics and civility. And that is in our city code, so you can find that there. I won't go over the entire thing. It's just mentioned here. And basically, it's like the mayor summarizes at the beginning of council meetings, basically be nice, and that goes for board members, it goes for staff, and that's all. Just making sure that we have good, productive meetings. I'm sure that's going to be here. And also Title 74, and I will send Idaho Code Title 74. I'll send you a copy. I'll just email you a link to that. That's the state of Idaho's open meetings, public records, and ethics laws. And those are the things that Zach was touching on. So we'll send you just a link to that. So in your spare time, you can go read Title 74. But Zach summarized it great. And then there's also the ethics portion in there too. So just to make sure you have a copy of that and know that applies to anyone acting on behalf of the city in official capacity. Liability insurance, just so you're aware, you're covered by and as a committee by the city's policy. And that's it. We tried to keep this little handbook short. It's just some rules to go by so that we all understand what's required. And, but in the end, now that we're kind of through all of that and everybody, understands what the deal is, hopefully going forward, it's just a free flow of information, and discussion and conversation. And that it's a really enjoyable experience. That's certainly the mayor wants to convey, that it is a really enjoyable experience for all of you. And again, just so appreciate your time. But if you ever have any questions, can't get a hold of Jason for whatever reason, or the chair, feel free to reach out to city clerk's office, cityclerk@sandpointidaho.gov, and that's included in the handbook if you need to. It's just, there's several of us who monitor that. So it's an easy way to get hold of somebody, and then we'll pass it along to whoever may need that information.
I'm just gonna give Melissa kudos, and really, if you have any question, like, I don't usually call anybody else in the city, but Melissa, I know she's always gonna have the answer to my question. And quite often, she doesn't need me to transfer me to the person who I thought I needed to talk to, so she is an amazing wealth of
Stuff.
I should probably touch on the ethics just briefly. That was a significant omission. If you stand to gain or benefit from a decision, particularly financially, or if you have a family member that stands to gain or benefit from a decision that you're making, you really should be abstaining from that. If you have any question at all, based on the it gets a little nuanced, give me a call,
So
because that can be significant.
we all stand to gain by like not crossing, getting killed when we cross. Highway to the lawyer.
That's not financial.
Yeah, so is it mainly financial that we're talking about?
Yes, personally, and the code uses the word pecuniary benefit,
Which means.
which means money.
Okay.
So, so yes, financially, or a family.
I would also think that because we're only making recommendations to council, that there's not much binding in what we do. Maybe if that makes.
That's correct, but we want to err on.
But no, I totally agree with what you're saying, but it's not as
That's
council can really mess.
I think for our little orientation here, we could probably now look at the code language around the duties of the pedestrian and bicycle advisory committee. So these were updated this spring after I started and was tasked with looking at all of our committee and commission responsibilities in Sandpoint City Code. So let's just look through those. Let me know if you have any questions. I will point out that as a committee, we are only required to meet 4 times per year. That doesn't mean we will only meet 4 times per year. In fact, I'm going to suggest that we have another meeting about a month from now to get into some of our initial business, since this meeting is really just about orientation introductions. So that's just the requirement in city code, that we have at least 4 meetings a year. Commissions, on the other hand, are actually, commissions aren't required to meet monthly, but they in code they do have that as a guidance for them. So let's just look through these. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll point out a couple that I think are of interest. I'd start with B, the assist and consult in the creation of and/or updates to the city's master plans, including but not limited to the multimodal transportation plan. In fact, I'm going to recommend, and we'll look at it a little bit later. I'll show you how to find it, and we'll just scroll through it. I'm going to give you some homework for our next meeting, and that's to familiarize yourself with the multimodal transportation master plan. I reviewed it yesterday to look for like overlap with our goals and mission as the Pedestrian Bicycle Advisory Committee, and it's pretty clear that that's going to be one of our guiding documents along with the comp plan. So I'm going to urge you all to look at the multimodal transportation master plan. So that's one of our duties, is to familiarize yourself with and possibly even create or recommend updates to those existing master plans for city council to consider. Discuss and provide advice regarding bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure citywide, including on development applications. That's a very specific duty right there. What is meant by development applications? This, in my experience, this is most likely going to be and certain developments like planned unit developments, which, if you're not familiar with what that is in city code, it's a type of development that we've seen a few of in the last several years, and we've actually got some coming down the pipe right now, where developers are asking for certain exemptions from things like setbacks or building heights or density requirements in code in exchange for public amenities that they intend to provide. Sometimes that will include better pedestrian connectivity, possibly things like little bicycle tracks that surround the property. There will be opportunities in larger subdivisions and planned unit developments for us to provide some input on like preliminary site plans, layouts for those types of developments, just to help guide the city's planning staff, which is within my department, on how to communicate with those developers and make recommendations to city council before a project comes before planning and zoning commission or council for consideration.
In its previous iteration, the committee also looked at commercial.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
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 Because access there, the whole thing.
Yeah, there are requirements in code for bicycle parking and commercial developments, things like that. So yeah, it's not a bad idea for commercial development. My mind was on residential because that's what we're seeing the most of right now. But when we see new commercial development, it'll be a good opportunity for us to kind of dive into those plans as well. Yeah. Within the multimodal transportation plan, we have what's called the pedestrian priority network and the bicycle priority network. That's what I really want us to get familiar with. That's kind of in the realm of duty D here: study pedestrian walkway, multi-use path, and bike lane locations and conditions, and advise regarding necessary improvements. You guys can be our eyes on the ground in the community. You know, I have the routes that I ride my bike daily, but there are whole parts of town where I've never ridden my bike. So if you're out and about and you see deficiencies that you think maybe staff just doesn't know about, you can bring those to this committee's attention. You can bring those to my attention. I can work with our public works team, our planning team to try to address those. Not to say we're going to send an emergency crew out immediately to, you know, repair a crack in a bike lane or a sidewalk, but just having greater knowledge, eyes on the ground is going to be really helpful for us.
On that note,
Yeah.
Jason, can I make a comment? So we had our roads, as you know, all assessed with that fancy machine, and I was hoping we could do something along the lines of all our pathways, not necessarily with the fancy machine, but having an inventory of what we need to work on, where we need to go. So
Sure.
I think that kind of falls under the realm.
Mhm. Yeah.
Recommend to council that we'd like statistical assessment in some manner.
Yeah, it's a great idea. You're referring to the pavement assessment study from a few years ago of all of our roads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need a sidewalk. and
Yeah, having
pathways.
data so that we know what
Yeah,
the
the data.
deficiencies are.
Yeah,
for sure.
absolutely.
Work and coordinate with other city committees, including ADA Advisory Committee, on requirements for public access and components of the transportation system and its extension or addition. Advise on programs to improve public awareness of and participation in non-motorized transportation. One of our other, I'd say, highly functioning citizen advisory committees right now is the Arts, Culture, Historic Preservation Commission, which has been meeting regularly for the last 2.5 years or so now. They do a lot of programming. They've been involved with historic walking tours that are happening monthly right now downtown. One of their projects is the creation of the historic walking tour brochure. That's a program, a project that they're actually overseeing. They oversee the Silver Box Art Project downtown, which we have the various sculptures around downtown. There are a lot of programs and projects that commission supports. They use subcommittees quite successfully. They have like action committees that actually will go out and do work or go out on site and meet with artists if it's an art project that is being worked on. So not every member of that committee is hands-on necessarily, but the committee itself acts as a advisory board for all sorts of art and historic preservation efforts in the city. I could see this committee. I think the vision for this committee is for us to be the advisory board for all bicycle and pedestrian projects and initiatives within the city, but also we can be looking for programs that we can support. The bike to school day that the school district puts on every year, the bike rodeos,
It's coming up.
walk to school days coming up. Rodeos that go on in the spring, those are things that I think members of this committee could get more involved in. I've always wanted to see more of a city presence in some of these things. Oftentimes it's like, well, can you send a firefighter or a couple police down there on their bikes to support this event? And sometimes it feels more like a security detail when there's all these kids. It'd be fun to just have more, presence from citizen volunteers like yourselves and awareness in the community. So, yeah, let's see.
Comment on the art?
Art.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'm still holding out because I've said no so many times to cross painting in
hard
a
to hear,
different, artful crosswalks. Painted with the theme instead of just straight stripes to give a little, give a little love, a little excitement, a little.
Sounds like a good
spice.
collaboration between the Arts and Culture Historic Preservation
Yes,
Commission.
that's
and
why
the
I'm
Pedestrian
saying
Bicycle
art, so
Committee.
that would maybe be something we can agendize and talk more about and the whys and why nots and hope for more whys.
Yeah. Notice we did put in the duties here that this committee would promote or support at least one event each year. So we just talked about some examples of those events. That could be a bike to school day, bike to work day, walk to school day, bike rodeo. I'm sure Aaron has all sorts of ideas as well. And then community outreach through engagement efforts, raising awareness. And yeah, any questions about these duties? Try to keep it pretty broad as far as the scope we can engage in as a committee. Everything from reviewing site plans to participating in events and activities in the community. Okay. there's no questions, then I think we can move on to the next agenda item, which is the election of board chair. So I don't know what the best way to go about that is. We have people who have been on this board in the past. We have a lot of new faces as well. Anybody want to make a nomination?
Volunteer.
Would any, what, just,
Or to
or
volunteer.
to volunteer, yeah, to be the board chair.
Well, it's hard to do that when you don't remember everybody's names.
Well, why don't we go around one more time, Aaron?
Would it be helpful, maybe, it's several of you did this, but
Yeah.
kind of mention, maybe some
Yeah.
professionals, experience you have, or, what
What drew you
feel-
to this committee?
what-
Yeah,
what's
why,
really-
why were you interested in being a part of this committee, other than a general interest in sidewalks and bike lanes?
It's the school district working with the kids and parents on.
So, Aaron, what is your exact role in the school district? Safe routes to
Safe
school
routes to school
coordinator. What does that mean though?
Means we raise awareness for trying to get kids to walk and bike to school. We send out a survey to parents once a year to see what their issues are, why they might not let their kid walk or bike. We've created some walk to school days, like walking school buses one day a week at Washington, Kootenai, Farman. We got some grants for Strider bikes to teach kids to bike in a couple of our schools. The outright grant at middle school to help the middle schoolers teach them to bike. So just everything walking and biking.
Jason, can I add, would you ask everyone also to say whether they have experience in or comfort with chairing or administering committees? You know, that would be useful
Yeah.
information also.
Sure.
I do not have experience. And I nominate Molly.
Well, and I can just pipe in too, and just kind of about that. Jason mentioned at the beginning about the script. So your staff will ensure that whoever is chair, or vice chair just fills it for the chair when the chair is absent. That you feel comfortable doing that. You're going to have a full script in front of you to walk you through the meeting. We'll script the meeting so that you don't have to wonder what comes next, or how do I call for a motion, or things like that. So even if you haven't done it in the past, if you have, great. If you haven't, but you'd like to participate in that regard or take a turn, then just know that we will ensure that you feel comfortable doing that.
Julie, what motivated you to be a part of this committee?
Well, I park my car probably 9 months out of the year and bike and walk everywhere. So I've always biked and walked everywhere in town, and it's been a real disappointment to me that the trails, not kept up with the progress of the city. So that's really what motivated me to get on the board, and I don't have any experience chairing either.
As I was before, and the bee's nest was once built in the engine of my car because I parked it over the summer for so long and just really walked everywhere. And I nominate Kate. Because she has experience and she's funny.
Evan, what about you?
I think just seeing communities that really lean into proactive pedestrian and bicycle involvement and investment over time, and just seeing those communities thrive and impact everybody in ways that they don't realize, even if they don't think of themselves as active walkers or bikers. There's so many tangible benefits. So I just look at a town that's growing and evolving quickly, and there's such an opportunity to not get caught in what a lot of fast growing towns do, of kind of losing your soul and identity in the process. Just trying to be a part of it and an active voice. And I've been involved in a few government organizations with like student government in college, and part of Parks and Rec as a summer job one year. Loved that experience and being able to have hands-on experience impacting the community you live in. So it's really kind of just personal interest, wanting to be, part of a positive trend in the community and leverage some past experience on boards. I haven't been a board chair, board vice chair, but that I prefer to defer to people who have had a little bit more experience on a committee like this, but I'm happy to volunteer however I can and help the group.
You sound like you have experience in other cities that have experienced some of these growth challenges.
Yeah, I've spent most of my life in Colorado growing up and grew up in rural Ohio. So I've seen a small town that didn't grow at all and actually faced the opposite issue of just no investment, no jobs, and just no change at all, and other than negative change, and then a rapidly growing area that faces real infrastructure challenges and can lose some of the charm that was once what attracted the people and kind of the heart and soul of the community.
Did your experience in those Colorado towns, was that like positive? Were they supporting bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure while experiencing those growth challenges, or were they struggling to
I
keep up
think
with that?
I think a lot of the communities in Colorado do a really good job of embracing pedestrian and bike. There's bike lanes everywhere. Sidewalks are generally well maintained, and you can see the positive impact that it has on a lot of them. I think the city of Denver in particular has grown so fast that there's just real infrastructure challenges in the city. But I do think as far as looking at some towns that have maybe we can share some best practices from or things like that. I think there are some areas in Colorado that have done a really good job with it.
I'm gonna go to Bradley because I always feel like the person on Zoom gets forgotten until the end. So Bradley, tell us what motivated you to be on this committee and if you have any experience with anything similar.
Yeah, so I'm actually sitting in Denver right now, oddly enough. Great timing on that. I wanted to be on this committee for a few reasons. I mean, again, I bike and walk a ton. A lot of the infrastructure in Sandpoint I think is great, and then all of a sudden there's just like an oddity that just totally derails that great section. My brother's also ADA, that's why I'm down here right now for the surgery. He's hopefully going to be on the ADA committee. He's also in Sandpoint. It's really, I mean, there fortunately is going to be overlap between this committee and ADA. It's unfortunate when he's going down a sidewalk and all of a sudden has to turn his wheelchair around, exit the sidewalk, go onto the street, and then return from where we're going. So typically we just ride in the middle of the street, which is kind of crazy. So that's kind of the precipice for why I joined this. To Denver's point, honestly, my view of Denver, yeah, has grown a ton. It's got its challenges, but overall it's world class compared to Sandpoint with multimodal transport. I'm riding my bike all over the place right now. It's super easy. I do have experience chairing a committee. I'm actually chairing one right now, and I'd really not like to chair two.
Thanks, Bradley.
Yeah.
Molly?
I badgered the city of Sandpoint into forming the Pedestrian Advisory Committee in 2004. And it was combined with the faltering bike committee, 2010, I don't know. Anyway, so I have chaired that some. I'm president of the Idaho Walk Bike Alliance, which is keeping me pretty busy. I will be in Tucson for the winter because I brake on the ice. And the sidewalks are not, really can't be kept clear of ice in the winter. So I'm very confined in the winter. I decided this was a way I could give back to the community by working on walkability in 2001, and it somehow has taken over my life. No doubt that I.
Thank you for your service on the Idaho Walk Bike Alliance. They do great work around the state.
They do great work around the state. Yes, very important.
Reed?
I guess my interest in this committee came more from like the public design and the urban design realm. It's what makes like quality city spaces and like bicycling and that public sidewalk interface is just like a huge piece of that. Lived in other cities and traveling to in town places like Copenhagen or the fabric of a city can be seeing like what's possible. City like Sandpoint, we have a lot of great infrastructure already. Like Randy was saying, like there's just some gaps in areas that we could kind of focus on in general, but so like looking at Sandpoint as a specific place that could become like it was, you know, as a kid biking around here at age like 6 through like high school, I was always biking to school. Maybe populations change, so it's like how can we grow but also maintain that level of accessibility for the general population. Dive into that I was passionate about. I've never chaired or worked on a committee other than
Thanks.
I am just finishing up the Leadership Sandpoint program, which is put together by the chamber. And a lot of that program talks about board involvement and community involvement. We have a lot of nonprofits in our community, but ultimately there's an emphasis on being a part of something that you're passionate about. And I think for me, I've been in outdoor recreation for a long time. I think it's on a little bit of the opposite spectrum of accessibility in the ski industry, because we all know it's very expensive. But I think, you know, walking and biking in town is probably the easiest form of accessibility to people in our community. And so that's what initially drew me to apply for the committee. I did also notice when I moved here a couple of years ago, there's a couple of signs coming into town that we are a pedestrian friendly community. And as soon as I moved into more of the outskirts of the core downtown area, I quickly realized that isn't necessarily the case. This area becomes very dark in the fall and the winter time, and I see a lot of older people as well as kids walking around in the streets when it's dark out. And I think there's just a lot of opportunity. It sounds like this community has grown a lot in the last few years, and I think the balance between vehicle traffic and pedestrian and bicycle traffic just has to be managed better for everyone's safety. So, and I do not have any experience. I'm excited.
Jason?
Yeah.
Real quick, because I think Deb needs to leave.
I have to go back to work.
Okay.
I only had an hour. Was your question, what days of the
As we
week?
speak about that, it'll be important to know what your preference would be in time.
Probably Thursdays and still like the noon time, and I can fluctuate some other stuff around, or maybe even like an 11:30 if we think we're gonna go an hour and a half.
Okay.
Because then I can manage that. Does that help?
Yep,
Okay,
absolutely.
all right. Thank you. Nice to meet everybody. Sorry I didn't have a little more time, so I had lots of lead time. Make bigger holes in my schedule. All right, have a great day, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Jen?
Why did I join? I think that, I mean, I've been walking and biking since I was here. All that, probably the thing that actually moved me to apply is when this recent iteration of the urban couplet and whatever else we want to call it back up, and we bonked it on the head again, and it's gonna pop back up because that's just talked to a number of people in the community, as has my both casually and like trying to set expectations for like what does that actually look like. My house is likely to be affected by those changes. My business is located within that, it's also likely to be affected. So so there is some potential for, you noted, I should be aware that I have a personal interest in that particular topic, but more than that particular topic, as you brought up, biking in town and walking and biking myself. There's just a lot of things we can do in general to the topic and reinvest. So that's definitely a passion point of mine, that particular project, but I don't have a desired solution. I just would like to see less. Seems like it continually just happens to come up and happens to get. I don't feel like there's been a lot of good directioning on that. So seeing this committee come back, it's like, oh, that's good. We should have some insight from that. So that's what happened. I am not really very interested in sharing at all. I've been on points before, but similar to Deb, I have I work at a clinic, and so sometimes I may have emergencies that may or may not pull on timeliness.
Great. Great.
I served on the city's planning and zoning commission for a long time. And during that time, sometimes the chair was very, times it was not. And wow, when it's not, it was just very frustrating, which is why I asked that question about who wants to chair. How do you want to deal with that? I would be happy to chair this one, I think, except I'm only appointed for 9 months. I expire on May 31st or
I don't
something
think
like
that's an issue.
that.
Be a
Uh,
replacement.
It would just be a reappointment.
And the other
If
one
you're
is
interested in staying.
travel a lot. So many times maybe I could appear remotely, but as far as why I wanted to be on this commission, I left the Planning and Zoning Commission with a certain amount of frustration about my inability to do anything about housing. Which was major concerns at that. Walked and biked since we moved here. And I've seen things that changes I would like to make to the walkability and bikeability of the town. And also, since I left the commission, I've been served because just should.
Two nominations.
So a nomination will be like a motion for this purpose. Deb cannot make motions. She is not a voting
Yeah.
member. So if someone else would like to nominate Kate, Kate would like to volunteer and nominate herself, you may do that as well.
There's also one nomination for Molly.
Yeah.
And there was a nomination for Molly, and that was,
But there's chair and vice chair.
Yeah, I can take it or leave it. It's not.
I heard you say you're already president of another organization. Are you interested?
I think this committee is just incredibly important. I bring a pretty big depth of knowledge about how things work in the city and with head bike stuff because of my 2 decades. And I don't tend to go, oh, we shouldn't try that because it didn't work before. That's not been my way of using historical. So I really do want to be very much involved. And it might be that, say, if Kate were chair and I were vice chair, that one of us would be in town and, you know, between us, we could do a really good job. And I think the important thing is that we try and have an effective chair and get as much done and have as much fun as we can.
And I want to add one other thing. It's just way, way, way easier to be chair now because there is so much better staff direction and structure. We were just wandering all over the zoning for the last comp plan. And I think the way meetings are structured now, there's a lot more options to have more effective meetings.
would you want to nominate Kate?
You want me to nominate Molly and Molly nominates you?
Well, I think we have a nomination for
Well, I
Molly.
can nominate her vice chair. if That's what she would rather.
Why don't you make a motion to nominate a chair and a vice chair?
Nominate Kate as chair and Molly as vice chair.
All right. That's good.
Would anybody like to second that motion?
Okay.
Okay. So, all in favor of nominating or appointing Kate as chair and Molly as vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, thanks, Radley.
Good power.
Okay, that was great. The next item is the selection of a regular meeting date and time. So we heard Deb say that 11:32,
11:30 to 1.
yeah, 11:30 to 1
Can I
would be
ask
ideal.
a question?
Mhm.
Is the idea that it is within work hours to allow for the staff members? Okay.
That's a big part of it, because, yeah, when we have our clerks are hourly employees of the city, and it's not really fair to ask them to work in the evenings.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and even our salaried staff already work a lot of evenings, planning and zoning and city council meetings, so.
But if
Is-
you can't make it in person, you can use Zoom also.
Yeah, yeah. Does 11:30 to 1 work for most people, or is the noon hour better for most people? Cause we heard Deb say she can come as early as 11:30, but we could also say this meeting starts at noon and she just might have to leave early sometimes. What works best for most people? And you don't have to be at every meeting. That's one of the reasons we have 9
How
committee
many can
members.
come, how many can come at 11:30? Okay. Bradley, so it looks like 11:30 works.
Good.
And we're all here on the first Thursday of the month? Is that generally,
I would like to recommend not first Thursday, if that's okay, just because we're coming out of council the day before. There's sometimes things hopping that first week, right? Several things.
Is the second Thursday of the month better?
I think it probably would be if that's,
what it would do for you or to you is you'd have to be quicker getting the minutes to Deb.
we'll
for
work
Wednesday.
that out with the council liaisons. We can always get them some notes. Yeah, that's not a problem.
Everybody look at your calendars.
So for October, that would be Thursday the 10th. Does that work for most people? Thursday the 10th for our next meeting?
That's for me.
Good here.
I'll be out of town, but just that week.
And they're always recorded, so you can catch up.
And can you set her up like you did Radley so she could
I
attend
won't
remotely?
be available.
We're
She
not
can be in the
gonna-
beach in Maui.
A party.
And then since Deb brought it up, obviously.
Oh, sure.
Okay, second Thursday of the month, 11:30. We'll start there for next month at least. We're gonna, we kind of just did a little roundtable, but Melissa, do you mind sharing your screen and pulling up the city website? I want to show you all where to find our multimodal, well, all of our community master plans. And give you a little optional homework for next month. That you can come with some greater knowledge of the guiding documents for pedestrian and bicycle welfare in Sandpoint.
So the C-click fix.
Mhm. We do not use that anymore.
Okay, so what do we?
It's
'cause we've
now
been
an
trying to
email,
put
Jason,
some-
click send and I'll fix it. No, I'm just kidding. We really did do away with that. It was turning into a Facebook message board for people we had like 12 people who posted the same thing every single day. of the
So
same
we've
bubble.
submitted 2 things because we didn't know that.
Oh,
The
is it still
school
active?
stuff. Well, it could be that
Still.
thing privately documented.
Oh, we'll support it's me. Let's see if I can fix it.
I forward all of them.
Okay,
So, yeah, it's going to end, our subscription will end at the end of this month and it will not be reactivated, but I am still fielding those when they come in. And then I'm forwarding them on.
forwarding on to the,
So where do we truly put?
Right here.
Matt Deal just texts me and then we meet.
Well, he submitted 2
Yeah,
and one's kind of urgent. So would that be you?
When were they submitted?
One was today, I believe,
Yeah.
and one was a few days ago.
But there's a contact us at the very top of our homepage. It's on all the pages. If you click there and it takes you to this contact us page, you can even send just a general inquiry. The clerk's office gets those and we forward them right out to wherever they belong. So you don't have to try to figure out who to contact here. You can just send a general inquiry in and either I or the deputy clerk will field that fairly quickly and get it out to staff. And that's how we'll do it henceforth, as we're not renewing the secret fix cage standpoint. And then we have a new website coming online in a few weeks. So, but still, there'll be a contact us page. And that's how we're gonna go forward until we have something else, if we have something else.
can you make your screen a little bigger up there? Maybe you can close this
Yeah,
participants
get
for
rid of
there.
that.
And then can we go back to the homepage?
Absolutely.
Sandpointidaho.gov. So on the left there is the master plans /reports. This is where you can find the master plans that I'm hoping you have some time to review by next month. So we'll click on that. The first one right at the top is the recently adopted 2024 comprehensive plan. I would encourage you to look through that. There are entire chapters on livability, on community character and design, on multimodal transportation. That this is kind of the visionary 20-year document. It took us 5 years to redo it. It was interrupted by COVID, but we just got it across the finish line July 17th. And I'm really proud of how it turned out. It's a really great comprehensive plan. So go look through the chapters. There's 12 chapters. Look through there. See if you can find any goals and objectives that relate to pedestrian and bicycle welfare in Sandpoint. Then if we scroll down, we're going to look for the multimodal transportation master plan. There it is, multimodal transportation plan. If you want to just click on that really quick, Melissa, this one will just open directly up to the plan. This was adopted in 2020, I believe now, 2021 maybe. Yeah, so it's a little old, but this has a series of goals and objectives as well, specifically related to transportation. You're gonna notice that some of them really have nothing to do with pedestrians. They're about levels of service for vehicles. They're about truck routes. They're about things that you're like, oh my gosh, why are we, is that really what's important? Well, it also is about pedestrian bicycle corridors, networks, and it identifies the priority pedestrian networks and the priority bicycle networks. Now, why are those important? When our Public Works Department sets out its capital improvement plan, it refers to this document for prioritizing what sidewalks it's going to improve in the next 5 years, what bike lanes and truck routes and travel routes and vehicle intersections and everything else that it's going to improve in the next 5 years. For example, the Pine Street two-way conversion that began yesterday, moving the stoplight from Church to Pine, that was a project identified as a short-term east-west connection for within our multimodal transportation plan. So the most recent amendment to this plan just occurred last year when City Council directed staff to modify our truck route map to take Pine Street to Superior Street out of it, so that trucks, by the end of this project this fall, there's going to be no truck signs downtown, and we're going to keep trucks on Fifth Avenue all the way to the on-ramp onto Highway 95 instead of cutting through town. That was something that the previous City Council identified as a deficiency in our multimodal transportation plan. We worked with Idaho Transportation Department. They agreed that they'd put signs up on 95 and on Highway 2 saying that no trucks are allowed on downtown streets. That's an effort that began 12 years ago when the byway opened. And I feel like we're just kind of getting to finishing that effort now. But there are, I looked yesterday, about half the goals and objectives in this plan relate directly to this committee. So these are the two documents I'd encourage you to review for our next meeting. We've already had, I think, a recommended agenda item from Molly that we might have on the next agenda. If you have any suggestions, you can communicate with Kate. I guess Kate would be your contact person first because she's our chair.
Yeah, but I need to get a new email address.
Kate's scrambling right now. Kate,
Everybody send me your email addresses.
Pet bike Sandpoint at protonmail.
All right, I put that on my list for tomorrow, so.
That's not urgent. That's not urgent.